Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the third installment now of our third installment of our Star Wars Shatterpoint book study. It's been going really well. We've got some really interesting chapters to go into tonight. So a little bit late. Sorry about that, but here we are. I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself there, and I'll go ahead and welcome our co-host, and then we'll welcome the chat, and then we'll get started. So join me as usual, folks. With us tonight, we have our co-host, uh, the self-proclaimed voice of reason himself, Mr. Darth Sever. Hello, sir.
Hello, Professor.
I was
Late
thinking,
are we?
how long are we going to hear that the Sith voice? But
I don't know. Depends on how long I feel like doing it.
very fair enough. Fair enough.
I
Yeah,
can
I'm a
always,
little.
I can always
Oh,
do
go ahead.
I can always do my Barry White dark Lord voice, but that's something else.
That's better than your ASMR whisper. So there's that.
Oh, don't get me going. I'll stop. That's good enough.
How have you been?
I've been all right. Chilling like a villain, and just just enjoying stuff as it comes. The Hallmark Movies and Mysteries has had Christmas movies on for the last few days.
Oh, Christmas in July. They're gearing up for that, huh?
Yep. Well, that's
Not
just
even June yet. Oh, that was just
well,
separate. Okay.
this is the Movies and Mysteries Hallmark channel. The regular Hallmark starts this weekend.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I know you can do another video this year.
I don't know. I might do something when the regular one kicks in.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I'm thinking about doing a top 10 Hallmark
Oh
best
yeah.
Hallmark favorite Hallmark. I don't like doing best because I find things. No, I know other people think different. I find it very subjective to say something is best or
Hmm. And you might change your mind a little bit later.
favorite. Yeah, and I waffle
Yeah.
all the time. It's
Yeah.
fun of it.
Yeah. We'll look forward to that then. Make sure you subscribe to Big Al's channel if you haven't. I'll put the link in later, but most people know Big Al. Um, Big Al Presents is the name of the channel.
Hmm.
Welcome to the chat. Go Team Ghost Planet forevermore. Good to see you there. And of course, my dear sound engraver. Hello, my prof, my handsome intellectual. And she said, hello, prof, my handsome intellectual. So you can't say, oh, hi, sound engraver. um,
I know no
welcome to.
hello for I know no hello for the man of the dark side, but
Welcome to Gigawatt 1.21. A Jedi is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. Nice. Um, welcome to Owen Lister, Darth Enigma, Zetopia, Tricon 40. Great to see everyone here. So, yeah, we've got these chapters. Before we get into them tonight, we're going to wrap up what's book one of the novel. And last time we brought up, Al actually talked about, Apocalypse Now and everything. And that is the genre that Stover is writing in with Shatterpoint, and you certainly do see him referencing Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Now, as I said last time, I've never read the full novel of Heart of Darkness. I've read parts of it. It was never my thing, but I understand the significance of it. Heart of Darkness, of course, the novel that Apocalypse Now is based on, though, was about Africa, colonized countries and whatnot. There, it wasn't Coppola reset it to the Vietnam era with Apocalypse Now. Same kind of themes, though, certainly very very similar. But there is a genre of that, of the sort of going native, type of genre, and there's a lot of similarities between whether Apocalypse Now or Heart of Darkness, in this novel, because what we've already established is how we see Mace Windu, somebody who himself was native to the planet. Uh, Harun Bakal, Harun Call. Um, what was taken away as an infant, of course, as Jedi are, and trained, and he did go back and learn the ways of his people. But it's a jungle planet. There is colonization, going on by the separatists. There are people there. The Balawai is what they call them, the foreigners who came in and are taking the resources of the planet for their own profit. They live in the cities, and they've joined up with the separatists, so they don't have to abide regulations of the Republic and so forth. So really good setup here. But there's a lot of darkness. Things have to be done differently here, as we're going to see in these chapters. It's a dark place. It's a savage place, especially in the jungle, and this civil war that's been going on for a while between the Koronai, the natives to the planet, and then the Balawai, those they call the foreigners. So really good stuff. And if you are a Heart of Darkness aficionado, I know some people really like the novel or whatever, feel free to call out some of the specific quotes or references or whatever. You're welcome to do that. Or Apocalypse Now. It's been ages since I've seen that, and obviously it's referencing that as well. So, but what'd you think of these 3 chapters?
Brutal,
Very brutal, yeah.
rough. Lots of cool action though with the kids and the tank or whatever it was.
The steam crawler.
Steam crawler.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you see the whole racism, you see colonialism, all these themes going on. And Mace Windu kind of like in the center of it, not quite a native, but not someone who is not a part of that culture. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Is he Balawai or
Corin?
Koronai?
Yeah. It's interesting. And you mentioned that things are really getting savage here because where we left off last time, Mace is being taken. There are 3 young Koronai who are sent by Deppa to come and take him to Deppa, and he wants to find Deppa, wants to see if she's really fallen to the dark side and so forth. She's his former Padawan, very much like a daughter to him and so forth. But 2 of the one of them died. Lesh, it was a
well, it's 4
of them. Yeah, sorry, 4. Lesh passed away. Lesh died from the blood fever, these fever wasps. Chalk, the woman, and Vesh, Lesh's brother, are infected with the fever wasps. And then there's Nick, the last guy, who's not infected, but he and Mace are trying to save, if there's any way possible to save Chalk and Vesh before the fever wasp larva becomes to the point where it eats their brain and they can no longer be saved. And they have this idea, if they can make it to this little outpost, this little Balawai settlement, they can put Chalk and Vesh into like a suspended animation with some of the stuff in the med pack, while Nick can go and get or they can call with the comm system rather the Pelek Ba, the witch doctor shaman basically of the Koronai, which is this guy named Carvaster. And he's supposed to be able to have these kinds of force powers and whatnot and stuff like that. So they do get there, and on their way there, Mace Windu says, okay, I'm not going to let you kill civilians there. And Nick says, what civilians? There are no civilians. Wake up. Everybody's at war here. When they get there, though, they see everybody's already been killed by the Koronai. It's pretty much a war zone, a massacre, and there's even dead children. And I want to read this part because it kind of sets up the theme of these 3 chapters. Mace asks him, then he asks, what about the dead children? It's the only time I've yet seen Nick angry. He wheeled on me like he wanted to throw a punch. What children? He said. How old do you have to be to pull a trigger? Kids make great soldiers. They barely know what fear is. It is wrong to make war on children or with them, and I told him so. No matter what. They're not old enough to understand the consequences of their actions. He replied in staggeringly obscene terms that I should tell that to the Balawai. What about our children? He shook with barely restrained fury. The Jups can leave their kids at home in the city. Where do we leave ours? You've seen Pelek Ball, the main city there. You know that happens to Koronai and the kids on streets. I know what happens. I was one of them. Better blown to pieces out here than having to survive like I did. So then out here, how do you tell the gunners in those ships that the Koronai, they're happily blowing arms and legs off, are only kids? Does that justify what happens to the Balawai children, the ones who don't stay in the cities? I asked him. The Koronai aren't firing down at random from a gunship. What's your excuse? The Koronai, yeah. We don't need an excuse, he said. We don't murder kids. We're the good guys. Good guys, I echoed. I could not keep a bitter edge from my voice. The holographic images shown to Yoda and me in Palpatine's office are never far beneath the surface of my mind. I have seen what's left behind of your good guys are done with the jungle prospector outpost, I told him. That's why I'm here. So he's referencing the holographic image that he had seen in Palpatine's office there, he and Yoda, and that Deppa had sent him a message recorded on this tape that was in a dead person's mouth. They'd like bolted the mouth shut to leave it there. Really gruesome graphic scene. And here Nick now reveals to Mace Windu that that was just a staging. The dead bodies were real. They came across dead bodies and then just staged them. And then this Carvaster guy, this not Pelikball, that's the name of the city. What's it called? Uh,
So many weird
it's a weird
terms.
Koran name. Yeah, it's a jungle something or another. I'll find it later. But this he's the one that had actually bolted the dead mouth shut. And the children were Koranai. So their own children were there. And since they were dead already, they just left them and staged them there. I mean, you see the disrespect for the dead and the, they have there. And Mace thinks, this Carvaster, what kind of man must he be? Nick told me it was Carvaster who nailed that data wafer into the dead woman's mouth with brass vine thorns. Nick told me it was Carvaster who persuaded the ULF to leave the corpses in the jungle, to make the scene so gruesome that I'd be sure to come here to investigate, to leave dead children, their own dead children, to the jonkas and the screw maggots and the black stinking carrion flies so full of blood they can only waddle across the rotting flesh. Stop. I have to stop. Stop talking about this. Stop thinking about it. I can't. Nothing in this world can be trusted. What you see is not related to what you get. I don't seem to be able to comprehend any of it. So we see Mace is really being tested here.
Mm-hmm.
His own, he's known darkness is there and he's fighting the darkness, but he's encountering darkness from these people that are just so flippant about it. And it's really throwing him for a loop, and this is only the beginning of this chapter.
Yeah, I mean, through his data entry stuff, you really see him. You're talking about him struggling.
Mm-hmm.
He is, and it's always been an aspect spoken about his character before. He always he kind of tiptoes between dark and light.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely has that razor's edge.
Yeah.
At the boundary of the dark side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because he's not somebody who balances his use of dark side with the light. He's not like what Revan would become, but he is he does have the purple lightsaber like Revan, to kind of signify
Mm-hmm.
that. He also specializes, as we talked about last time, Vapad, which was the 7th form of lightsaber fighting, which is all about tapping into this wild animalistic nature of yourself that enjoys the fight, wants
Mm-hmm.
the kill, but you have to balance against it so you don't fall into darkness while using it. So yeah, he's very, as you say, walking the razor edge is a good way of putting it.
He would have to be a very disciplined Jedi
Mm-hmm.
in order to stay on the side of the light, and I think that's what happens, or I'm assuming it has happened with Depa, is that she could not tiptoe as well as Mace can.
Yeah. They get there to the outpost. They see the dead children. The comm system they had planned on using is down. It's been broken. But he does eventually. He says, "I like the way it leads up to it." He says, "I think she is dangerous. I am afraid she wants me to become dangerous too." Talking about why Depa would have staged such a thing for him. I need to change think about something other than because I asked Nick about her. And he hasn't been asking them about her. He wanted to give her the chance to defend herself when he meets her, but he asked Nick about her. I couldn't help myself. Hope blossomed along with my anger. If the hollow was a setup, maybe what she'd said no more than atmosphere, local color, or something. Despite my determination to hold myself unbiased until I could see her, speak with her, feel her essence in the Force, despite my resolve to ask nothing and hear nothing, despite all my years of self-discipline and self-control, the heart has a power that no discipline can answer. And that's another cool way of seeing this. It's not just so much about, it's what leads to the dark side, right? Anger, fear, the heart, unrestrained, unself-control. So I asked him. I told him Depa's words on the data wafer, how she called herself the darkness in the jungle, and he said that she had how she said she had finally gone sane. How I fear that in fact she has fallen to the dark and is irretrievably mad. And Nick, crazy? He said with a laugh. You're the one who's crazy. If she was crazy, nobody'd follow her, would they? But when I asked if he meant she was all right, he responded, that depends on what you mean by all right. I need to know if you've seen her act from anger or fear. I need to know if she uses the Force for her own personal gratification, for gain, or for revenge. I need to know how much hold the dark side has on her. You don't have to worry about that, he told me. I've never met someone kinder or more caring than Master Balaba. She's not evil. I don't think she could be. And this is key here, Nick's or Mace's response. This isn't about good and evil, I told him. This is about the fundamental nature of the Force itself. Jedi are not moralists. That's a common misconception. We are fundamentally pragmatic. The Jedi is altruistic, less because to be so is good than because to be so is safe. To use the Force for personal ends is dangerous. This is the trap that can snare even the most good, kind, caring Jedi. It leads to what we call the dark side. Power to do good eventually becomes just power. Naked force, an end in itself. It is a form of madness to which Jedi are peculiarly susceptible. Nick answered with a shrug. Who knows real reasons why anybody does anything? It's just Mason's dropping all this wisdom,
Whap!
It's like,
This will force push the guy into a rock.
no.
And Lore Pellick is that.
Thank you, Lore Pellick. Yeah, jungle master, or jungle doctor, or jungle wizard, I think is what it was, or something. But yeah. So as I said, the comm systems are down. So this is it. Does Devesh and Chalk just die? And Mace says no. They actually convince Chalk's act dog. Those dragon-like dogs that were force sensitive that they'd use to kind of protect themselves and their grassers, the herd animals. They convinced Chalk's one last remaining dog to let Nick ride on it to go find Carvaster. And Mace is going to sit there and protect Chalk and Vesh. So they go ahead and put them in the suspended animation, and Mace is there to protect them. Don't know who's going to show up. This was a Balawai outpost, and it had been conquered and all the dead bodies. Now Mace does go through and bury them all, and he talks to himself about how Nick would laugh at him if he knew he was doing it, like what for, and so forth. And he's having this really interesting introspection. As you said, Al, he talks about it. He's recording his journal entries, in this data pad, and he starts to think, that sounded like queer. Some Haroon called jungle predators mimic their prey's mating calls or cries of distress to lure or to drive them. I wonder what kind of predator that one was. Something that preys on humans. It must be. That cry almost got me. Sounded exactly like a child's scream of terror. I mean, exactly. And now this one. Oh no. That's basic. Those are screams. There are children out there. And then, that little space break. It's like, oh my gosh. So again, coming back to the idea of children, of innocence, protecting innocence no matter what, even if innocence, even if you're in an environment where it seems like nothing can be innocent. And he goes and finds that this, he talked about, we didn't mention it, but this sort of settlement that they're at is on the foot of a volcano. And Al, you stop me at any point you want to comment on this, because I'll just, describe this. But he finds a steam crawler, a Balawai steam crawler, who's just been kind of like, it's sinking a little bit into the lava. It's, it's dangerous there. He goes and he sees this girl and two boys on top of it. It says, I got it here. Yeah. On the roof were two young boys, both about 6, and a girl of perhaps 8 standard years. They clung to each other, sobbing, terrified, eyes staring through their tears. And remember that Mace himself, he's dark-skinned. He looks like a Koran, Koranai to the Balawai. And we really see Mace's, I say, there's a discussion to be had. Is he an aspirational hero or not? And I would say he is. We really see that aspirational nature come through here. But he does battle. He battles a lot within himself here. He says, or in the chapter, Mace squatted beside them and touched the girl's arm. My name is Mace Windu. I need your help. The girl sniffled in astonishment. You? My help? Mace nodded gravely. I need you to help me get these boys to safety. Can you do that? Can you take these boys up the same way I came down? Climb right up the crest. It's not steep, because he's using the force to kind of hold back the lava. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid. Mace leaned close and spoke in her ear, only a little louder than the hush of the rain. Me too. But you and I have to act brave, pretend, so you don't scare the little boys, okay? The girl scrubbed her runny nose with the back of her hand, blinking back tears. You're scared too? Shh, that's a secret, just between us. Come on, up you go. Okay, she said dubiously, But she wiped her eyes and took a deep breath like this. And when she turned to the other children, her voice had the bossy edge that seems to be exclusive weapon of 8-year-old girls. Erno, Nickel, come on, quit crying, you big babies. I'm going to save us. So really, a touching moment there, and you see in that sense, okay, hey, it's still possible to save people in this environment. That's great.
Yeah. But
And go ahead.
I love before Mace gets to them though, he thinks of Yoda.
Hmm.
And because it's like he remembers it because he knows this is a huge task. And Yoda's line of always saying size matters not. But then I just love this part. Is Yoda would probably just reach out, lift the steam crawler from the gully, and casually float it up the mountain to the outpost while croaking some enigmatic maxim about how even a volcano is as nothing compared to the power of the Force.
I know. I did like that too. I'm glad you read that.
Yeah, I can see Yoda doing that.
If only Yoda was there.
Nothing to the power of the Force.
Yeah, Yoda's awesome. We need more Yoda stories. um, so Mace still hears somebody in the steam crawler, and he reaches down, he looks, and he finds that there's this young boy. He's older than the girls. I forgot the exact age. A little bit older anyway.
Something like 13?
Something like 14? That. 12 or 13, yeah. And he's holding a girl. There's a girl that won't wake up, and the boy's got a broken arm, and he's trying with one arm to carry this girl up the steam crawler steps, but he just can't make it. And he's like begging the girl to wake up, but she's not going to wake up. She's knocked out. And then Mace announces himself and says, "Here, let me help you. Let me help you." But he looks like a Coronai. So the boy looks up and is like, "Oh, you dirty corno, get out of here! This and that." And Mace realizes there's no way I'm going to be able to convince this kid. He's going to end up killing himself and her. How do I do this? And I like it says, again, he remembers what Yoda tells him a lot in here. I'm glad you pointed that out, because he says, Mace spun the situation in his mind. He framed it as a fight for the lives of those 5 children, all of them. A fundamental principle of combat: use what you're given. How you fight depends on whom you fight. His first opponent had been the volcano itself. He'd used the power of the volcano's weapon, the lava, where it had undercut the cliff, to hold that power at bay. His current opponent was not the boy, but rather the boy's experience of the summertime war. Use what you're given. Kid, Mace called, roughening his voice, making himself sound the way the boy would expect a Corin to sound, adopting a thick upland accent like Chalk's. Kid, 5 seconds to toss the blaster out the hatch and come after it. You got? Never, the boy screamed from inside. Never. Don't come out, you, and the next thing you see, the last thing you see ever, is a grenade coming in. Hear me, you? Go ahead. I know what happens if we get taken alive, because the Coronai would torture them, they think. Mm-hmm. Kid, already got the others, don't I? The girl, Erno, and Nickel. Gonna save them all, gonna leave them all alone, you, with me? There came a pause. Mace said into the silence, Sure, go ahead and die. Any coward can do that. Guts enough to live for a while, you got? He was moderately sure that the 13-year-old boy who'd loaded up 4 children and set out in a steam crawler across the Coronal Highland at night, a boy who'd rather die than leave an unconscious girl behind, had guts enough for just about anything. A second later, he was proven right. So we've got Mace takes these kids back into the same, little base there, little hideaway that he's got Chalk and Vesha. And Chalk and Vesha are in the suspended state of animation. Not suspended animation so much that their bodies are just slowed. Like their blood is very slow. Their breath is very slow, so that the larva can't grow.
One heartbeat a minute, and very low breaths.
Yeah, something like that. So he's got these children, these Balawai children in there. He doesn't reveal that he's a Jedi, because honestly, why do they trust Jedi? The only Jedi they know of is Depa out there, who's leading their enemies or whatever. They end up thinking or deciding amongst themselves that he's some kind of bounty hunter, because they know he's obviously not Coronai, because he doesn't act like the other Corans, but they think he's some sort of bounty hunter, and that Chalk and Vesh must be his bounties. And then they start talking about bounty hunters, and they say, "Well, Jango Fett's the best bounty hunter." And they're like, one guy said he's dead, and the kid says, "He's not dead, is he? Is he?" And he looks at Mace, the guy who killed Jango Fett, and he's like, he is dead, this and that or whatever. But really kind of tense moment. I do like that moment that Terrell is the boy's name, the 13-year-old boy, and he still thought he was a Coronite enemy, but he would vacillate between insulting him as an enemy and then also asking if he can shoot his gun. Like typical
Yeah.
13-year-old boy. you know, um,
Like I said,
then though, oh, good.
see, Terrell said with terrible 13-year-old scorn. Of course he is stupid. Some stinking Jedi snuck up behind him and stabbed him in the back with one of them laser swords. Whoops.
Which is Mace, but it wasn't, of course, sneaking up behind him or anything. So again, thinking about the themes of these chapters, which is really, it's not just exclusive to these chapters. These 3 chapters are wrapping up book 1, so we're wrapping up the themes of all of book 1 and springboarding into the books of the chapters of the next book of the same novel. But we see here we've got children. We had talk of children. Are there innocents in this jungle? Mace finds some, just desperately trying to survive. He does this heroic act of saving them. He's also there to try and save Chalk and Vesh, as their guardian in that state that they're in. And he's thinking about what to do, and he realizes he hears people coming out there, and it's not Nick. It's a lot of people coming, and he's thinking what to do, and he hears Yoda's voice again. Yoda says, when you're losing one game, you play another. And he's talking about this move into Jarek where it's called I like it. He says, it's called the move is called a fork because you kind of place your pieces, in 2 different, like a fork shape. Best outcome, the phrase itself, a mockery. On Haroon Call, there seems to be no such thing. Forked. You're forked, if this happens or whatever, because either way, you got to sacrifice one of your 2 pieces there. It's like a little play on words. And yet in Dejarik, one doesn't get forked by accident. It's the result of a mistake in play. But where was my mistake that left us here? Glow rods below. They've left the steam crawlers and are advancing on foot. No one is called out. They will have tried to raise this outpost on comm. Getting no answer, they'll approach with caution. I wouldn't be surprised if those glow rods are lashed to long sticks to see if they draw sniper fire. There are a lot of them. Now in desperation, I can only do as I always have. When I have faced impossible situations, I turn to Yoda's teachings for advice and inspiration. I can summon in my mind his wise green eyes and imagine the tilt of his wrinkled head. I can hear his voice. If no mistake have you made, yet losing you are, a different game you should play. Yes, a different game. I need a different game. New rules, new objectives, and I need it in about 30 seconds. Terrell, come up here. All of you. Pell, wake up the boys. We're going to play a game. The voice of a boy faintly. What kind of game? A new game. I just made it up. It's called Nobody Else Dies Today. Another boy's voice faintly. I was asleep. Is it going to be any fun? Only if we win. So really good into a chapter there. And Mace is having to think so fast on his feet. And it's like, man, what is he going to do? He's caught between so many factions that would never believe that he's just there to save anybody's life. Like he's a Jedi. He's only there to save everybody. But the Corran don't believe in his Jedi ways. They think that's corrupt. The Baloi don't think the Jedi are any good because they don't know anything about it. So he's just like, he's like stuck in such a hard place.
Yeah, he's literally the proverbial rock and hard place.
Yeah,
and you're right. He can be truly forked right now.
Yeah, and he knows that these Baloi on their way are already set on edge because these are the Baloi that came from the settlement that these children came from that had been attacked. So they're on edge, and they're coming to this other settlement that they couldn't reach via comms. And he knows that they could just start trigger happy firing at any point. And if they fired in here, the bullets could bounce around and end up killing the kids or Chalk and Vesh or somebody. So he's trying to help them not kill their own children, and it's just, and Lister, thanks so much for the $4.99 super chat. Says I can't help but think that forked is a substitute for enough. Yeah, that's kind of what there was one way he worded it, which I admire his playful language. I can't remember where it was, but yeah, but at the same time, it's not like gratuitous. It's not like, but it makes sense because it's called for it because the game, you literally make a fork with your players, so you're forked. But yeah, thank you for the super chat there. So, and Al, you fill in the blanks or fill in the missing pieces here if I miss any of this, because it's an interesting little game he plays. He sends out Terrell with a light, I think, saying, it's me, Terrell. He's holding his hands up. And he said, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." And he hears back that it is his people. Um, he's saying, "Is anybody who else is in there?" And Terrell says, "Yeah, the rest of the kids are in here." And then Mace says, "I'm here also." He's just putting his voice out there. And they say, "Who are you? Show yourself." And Tyrell says he doesn't want to show himself because he's a corno, but not like really a corno. He's just more like, there's a lot to it. And they they start talking to Mace, like, "Why aren't you going to show yourself?" He says that the urge to shoot me might be irresistible, because he knows these people. He can't tell them he's a Jedi. They won't believe that. Um, and he's trying to make them understand that, one, they need to hurry up and get the kids out of there because he wants to give them the kids. He just doesn't want to get shot in the process. Then he wants them all to leave fast because he knows that Carvaster's on his way there. The big bad Corran is on his way there. So he's trying to get them to go. And then they're saying, "Well, we can't go. We need this place because, our place is up. We need to hold up here until morning." And he can't make them understand. He's trying his best. He even shows them the gun. He's trying to, get out of here, to save their life. One of them ends up revealing that Tyrell's dad died, and you meet the father of the other kids is in there, and ends up once they start hearing Carvaster's people coming, they start thinking, "Oh, this man inside this cave there is lured us into a trap." So the father of the children that Mace has just saved ends up firing the first shot in there, and
Mhm.
it's just like, oh, it's such a mess. Now, to defend them, he knows he's got to defend that opening from any shots fired in there, or else they could hurt the children or Vesh or Chalk. So he goes into full Vapod mode with his lightsabers, and he's trying two lightsabers, his own and Depa's, and he's deflecting all of the shots. And as he's doing this, he has to give himself over fully to Vapod. All these meant less to him than the new vectors of fire as he continued his relentless march and the Jups broke from cover. He was also aware that not all of the Jups were shooting. He heard Rankin's desperate orders to cease fire and felt in the Force an irrational blood hunger that kept the others squeezing triggers until their weapons began to smoke. A blood hunger fed by the dark. No, not blood hunger, blood fever. So there's this power, there's this influence there. And he doesn't know where it's coming from yet. Probably maybe Carvaster, maybe the jungle itself, but it's causing them just a need to keep firing and killing, and it's even affecting him as he goes into Vapod. The dark power he had felt gather in the Force now rose around him to swallow the stars. It broke over him in a wave that pushed him down and caught him up when he felt the hostile presence lunge toward his back. He whirled with effortless speed, and amethyst light splashed fire through the dark durasteel blade of a knife held in a small hand. A sliced off piece skittered across the ground, and green energy dropped like an axe for the kill, and stopped, trembling. 1 centimeter above a brown-haired head. Brown hairs curled, crisped, and blackened in green fire. A stub of knife, its new cut edge still glowing hot, dripped from a nerveless hand. Stunned brown eyes, streaming tears and sparkled with brilliant green highlights, stared up at him in front of either side of Depa's blade. "Stinking Jedi," Terrell sobbed. "Go on, kill me. Go on, kill me. Everybody." "You're not safe here," Mace said. He threw himself backward and with a shove of the Force sent Tyrell skidding toward the door of the bunker. A jet of flame howled through the space where he was stood. Mace rolled to his feet, blades angled defensively before him. So not only are the people that he's trying to give their kids back to trying to kill him, he's also trying to stop the Corrans from killing them. And the kids he just saved are trying to kill him too because they realize he's a Jedi now that he's ignited his sabers. And it's just, is there a win in this situation?
Yeah, well, you say that there is. He even says, like right before everything starts to happen, Mace thought, "Looks like we lose."
Mhm.
Because he's talking about we need a new game,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and he's losing because it's going downhill.
Mhm. And there is this darkness power, at play around them. And then he starts to kind of be affected by it. And it's interesting because he starts to reason with himself the same way you and I are reasoning here. He says, these people had attacked him when all he wanted was to help them, when he had been trying to save them. They had attacked him without regard for their own lives or the lives of their children. They'd almost made him kill one of their children himself. They were stupid. They were evil. They deserved to be punished. They deserved to die. He saw it all in a single burst of image, a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. He saw himself dive headfirst under the steam crawler and flip to his back with twin blades carving through the crawler's lightly armored undercarriage. He'd come up in the passenger's compartment where one of the two armed men might be guarding the wounded. He'd use their own blaster fire to take them out, then cut his way into the cabin, take out the driver. Then he'd wash the compound in flame projected from the steam crawler's turret gun. The Jups on foot would run and shriek as they burned. Then he would use the force to flip his lightsabers through the air to carve gaps in the armor of the other steam crawler, gaps which his gun would pour flame, roasting the drivers and passengers and wounded. Thick meat-scented smoke would billow out the latches. They'd all die, every single one of them. It wouldn't take him a full minute, and he'd enjoy it. He was already running toward the steam crawler, gathering himself for the headlong dive when he finally thought, what am I doing? He barely managed to turn his dive into a spring instead. So he stops himself, but he realizes, he's been fighting his own darkness, or the temptation to fall to it. But now there's this other dark force that's drawing him in and is really, affecting not only him, but those around him. And he feels that effect. Then the act dogs, a bunch of act dogs come in that are from the Coronai that are showing up, Carvaster and Nick and all of them. And these act dogs, rather than attack the Ballywai, they start herding them into one spot. And Mace realizes this is almost like a ritualistic, like herding them to the killing ground or something like that, And finally, he sees Carvaster. Mace felt the dark thunder rising in the force, and he knew the compound hadn't become a corral. It had become a slaughter pen, a killing ground. And then he felt the shadow of the butcher. What a really fascinating character this guy is, and what a challenge for Mace. What a foil for Mace this character is going to be. We see it already in this chapter. This is that witch doctor, of the Corrins here. Mace looked upslope. There he was, standing on the rock above the bunker's door. A Corrin. In the force, he burned with power. Huge. His sweat glistening bare chest could have been focused to gather from gentle granite boulders. His shaven skull gleamed more than 2 meters above his bare feet. His pants were crudely sewn from a vine cat's belt. His raised arms like a skyscraper's buttress over his head. To each forearm was strapped some kind of shield, elongated teardrops of a mirror-polished metal. Their wide curved ends extended around his massive fist, and they tapered to needle points a handspan behind his elbows. So kind of think about those shields that Cap wore in the Infinity Wars. That's kind of what they look like, but they're made of this vibroblade stuff. Veins writhed in his forearms as his fists tightened. The edges of the shields blurred with a high evil whine resonant in Mace's teeth. The act dogs turned to the man as though this were some kind of signal. As one, dogs and men lifted their heads to the smothered stars and unleashed another dark blood fever howl. It hummed in Mace's chest, and he felt the echoing answer it drew from his own rage, and he finally understood. The rage wasn't all his. His blood fever was an answer his heart gave to the call of the jungle, to the howl of the axe, to the power of this man. So it is his effect he's having on people.
This is where he got the image of Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah, that would have been a good. Yeah, I can see that.
That massive bald-headed guy.
Yeah, and he knows this must be Carvaster. And the Ballywai met them with a storm of blaster fire, so they start attacking the Ballywai. Bolts flashed and splattered and splinters. So Carvaster has his own little set of acolytes who also have these shields on their arm, these sharp-edged shields on their arm. And splattered and splintered upward into the clouds as the twin shields each man bore moved faster than thought. The Ballywai stopped firing. Not a single Corrin had fallen. Their flashing shields had intercepted every bolt. They could only have learned this from a Jedi, from one particular Jedi. Oh no, Mace thought. Oh, Depa, no. On the rock above, the Lord Pelix spread his corded arms, leaned out over the drop, toppling as he thought he could fly, then at the last instant sprang forward in a dive that carried him toward the center of the crowd of Ballywai, where they massed around the steam crawlers. The killing began. So yeah, brutal jungle stuff here. Now, we come in chapter 8, our last chapter of the night, and this is where we're going to have our first meeting of Carvaster and Mace Windu. And in the end, we'll have another meeting here. But he sees Carvaster go for one of the steam crawlers, and Mace, knowing where the source comes from, Mace is able to kind of have a bit more of self-control over it, And you think about your own life. I like the psychological realism of this, which is so great, because the story should be the truth inside the lie. And even though this is fiction and we're not on other planets and we're not with the Force and whatnot, we know what it's like to strive for doing the good when we're tempted to do the bad. whether you're religious, like us, and that kind of context, or you're just, somebody of ethics, that temptation. And it is easier to fight a villain with a name or with a face. So he does. Carvastor, he realizes, is the force behind all this influence that he feels around him.
Mhm.
Carvastor jumps into one. He carves himself a hole with his shields into one steam crawler and goes in. And Mace he's got to act, so he stops him from killing. So he jumps in. He carves his own holes in the top, and he jumps down and pins Carvastor to the ground. Vastor lay pinned, face down on the deck, half stunned. Mace leaned close to his ear. Carvastor, I am Mace Windu. Stand down. That's an order. Uh, a twitch of the forest was his only warning, but for Mace, it was more than he needed. He threw himself into a backflip a quarter of a second before the disc of armor slammed upward and smashed against the ceiling with a deafening clank before it could fall again. Vastor was on his feet. As the disc dropped, an ultrachrome flame licked through it, sliced it half. Pieces rattled back down through the hole Vastor had cut into the undercarriage. So Vastor looks at him, and he hears Vastor grumble something, but when he's looking right at you, the force tells you what he said. So he doesn't have the power of speech, and we find out why here in a little bit. But through the force, he can communicate with you. You hear his kind of growled words in your mind when he's looking at you. The way he had shrugged off Mace, slicing the armored disc, a predator's dominance display. So again, jungle, wild, predator, alpha male type thing. He raised his shield-clad hands in salute and rumbled something in a language that Mace didn't recognize. It didn't even sound like language at all, more like growls and snarls of jungle beasts. But as Vastor spoke, some power of the Lord Pellic unfurled his meaning inside Mace's mind. Mace Windu, the Lord Pellic had said, an honor. Why do you interfere in my kill? There is no kill, Mace said. Do you understand me? No kill. No more killing. And I love this because we've seen Windu, Mace try to debate this philosophy with Nick, but now he's talking to the Big Daddy himself, the Lord Pellic of the tribe. And he says, there is no killing, no kill. Vastor's smile was disbelieving. No? Then what do you propose? Shall we lay down our arms? He beckoned invitingly with one sizzling shield. You first. The zings of blaster ricochets, the roar of steam crawler turrets came clearly through the gaps in the crawler's armor. No unnecessary killing, Mace amended. No more massacres. Vastor's response had a quality of animal directiveness, straightforward and uncomplicated. Massacres are necessary, Doshalo. And Doshalo is a word for basically brother, or like tribesman. You and I are not Doshalo. Mace angled his lightsabers in a defensive X. You are no clan brother of mine. Vastor shrugged. Where are Besh and Chalk? So Mace tells him they're in the bunker. And then Vastor says, well, these right here, they'll keep. You come with me. And as he jumps out of the steam crawler, Mace feels this tug of will, this force tug that Vastor had after him, which just like really inclines Mace to obey. And of course, Mace resists it, but he starts to see the power this Lord Pellic has over these people, Mm-hmm. And then again, it's like, man, would somebody just cooperate with Mace for crying out loud? He's trying to save you. He's telling the people there, look, don't kill anybody. He slices their guns. He says, sit there. Your only chance of living through this is to be quiet, do this. And they're like, why should we, trust you, this and that. And he says, I'm a Jedi master. The man spat blood on the deck. We know what that's worth. Obviously, you don't. In the forest, Mace felt the dark flame that was the Lord Pellic fighting his way upslope toward the bunker. For an instant, he was almost grateful. He'd be happy to leave the defense of Chalk and Besh in Vastor's hands. But then he remembered the children. The children were still inside. Was where Vastor was going. Massacres are necessary. I won't argue. Mace moved to the rim of the hole Vastor had cut and looked up through the one he cut himself, judging his clearing. Fight to a sure death or surrender to a hope of life. The choice is yours, he said, threw himself upward. So he's got to get back to the bunker to save these children because there are Balawai children in there. Mm-hmm. So how's it? And man, this is where stuff hits the fan, man. Oh, I remember reading this the first time, just thinking, whoa, and I will say for pacing wise, Stover knows what he's doing. So we're only reading 3 chapters at a time here for the book study. So if you're reading along and you're reading at a slower pace, don't get discouraged. Stover knows what his readers can handle. It's not just a book of nihilism. I wouldn't be doing a book study of it if it's a book of nihilism. But it gets really dark. And if you know anything about an aspirational hero story or really stories where good's going to triumph in the end, the darker it gets, the brighter it's going to have to shine at some point. But Mace is really being tested. And I think he's being tested in a way we're all tested in the world, your boundaries, your moral boundaries. Well, I wouldn't do that because that's wrong. Oh yeah, well, what if this happened? Well, what if the situation was like this? How, just the world tries to make your morals more relative and more relative. Um, so Mace gets into the bunker and he sees Carvaster holding Tyrell, the little 13-year-old boy, up by the neck, basically. He's about to kill him, and Mace is saying, "Stop! Don't do that." And well, actually, before he gets there, he sees one of Vaster's own little acolytes there about to kill some Balawai, and Mace stops him. He hits him, and that the guy turns on Mace, but realizes who Mace is, and he says, "Oh, you're Deppa's sire," and that sire, Deppa's father or whatever, is a word for it. So it disturbs him a little bit, but he tells the man, "Do not kill. I'll come back for you." But he gets in there and he sees Carvaster holding up Tyrell, the boy, and he calls him he says, "Look," he says, "Vaster, stop." Mace opened himself to the full flood of the force and used it to hammer into the Lord Pellic's will. "Don't do it, Carr. Put the boy down." He might as well have not bothered. Vaster's answering snarl translated in Mace's mind, "When I am done with him." The shield strapped to Vaster's arm made a mirrored halo over Tyr's head, but now the other angled toward the Besh and Chalk lay. "Look there and see what sort of creature I hold." "He's not some creature," Mace responded with reflexive certainty. "He's a boy. His name is. His voice trailed away as his eyes finally made sense of what Vaster was pointing at. "Tyrell." Besh and Chalk lay on the stone floor midway between Vaster stood holding Tyrell and where Keela, Pell, and the two younger boys crowded. The clothing of their thanazine-bound coronae appeared inexplicably rumpled, even tattered, and over their torsos it glistened a wet, oily black. A full second passed before Mace realized that it was light from the blaze that robbed color from the wet gleam on their clothes. He figured it out by the smell, stronger even than the reek of the burning compound outside. It was the smell of blood. Someone had been hacking inexpertly, but with considerable enthusiasm, at the two helpless coronae. Hacking at two human beings Mace had sworn to protect. Hacking at sad Besh, who could not speak, who'd lost his brother only yesterday. Hacking at fierce Chalk, the girl who'd made herself strong enough to survive anything but this. They had lain down in this cold bunker floor and taken into their veins the drug that had swallowed them in a false death, trusting that a Jedi Master would watch over them to prevent a real one. On the floor below, Tyrell's dangling feet, a short stub of a knife smeared with the same dark blood. The blade was only half a decimeter long, a tip now sharpened straight to a slant. Tyrell's knife, the one Mace had sliced in half on the slope outside. Strength drained from Mace's knees. "Oh, Tyrell," he said, getting his lightsabers swallow their blades. "Tyrell, what have you done?" "Don't worry," was the meaning of Vaster's rumbling growl. "He won't do it again." And then Vaster straight up kills the boy in front of Mace. Poor Mace. I mean, strong as this man is, and just trying to do the right thing in this utter world of darkness, and the people he's trying to save, the innocence he's trying to argue for, goes and does something like this. But it's so psychologically real because you can see this kind of stuff happening in war zones, Now we find out, I will just kind of, go ahead.
Well, like Nick said, there are no civilians.
Mm-hmm.
They're all fighters, are all
Yeah.
part of some kind of army.
What children? They're all soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now Chalk and Vesh aren't. Oh, go ahead.
Like I said, poor Chalk and Vesh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now they're not conscious, but they've been hacked away at. Now they're not dead. Mace tells Nick later that somebody who's pretty good with a med pack could still kind of bind the tissue. They're slow. Their blood was slowed, by the thing and stuff. But Vaster kills Tyrell. Now that pretty much just something snaps in Mace as he sees that. He jumps in front of the other children with his lightsabers ignited. It says, and he tells, Vaster says, "We have gone to considerable length to bring you here. Must I kill you?" "I told you before," Mace's growl matched Vaster's. "I am not your Doshilo." "It will hurt Deppa to find you dead. Stand down." Mace's whole body thrummed with his need to strike, his need to dive into Vapad and allow its dark storm to drive his blades. His veins sang with blood fever, and the black migraine hammered his skull. He needed to hit Vaster, to hurt him, to punish him. But a lifetime of Jedi discipline held him in place. Jedi do not revenge. Jedi do not punish. Jedi defend. Mace ground his teeth together, panting harshly. Leave this place, Carvaster. I won't let you harm these children. Vaster tells him, I see flames in your eyes, Jedi Mace Windu, jungle green and storm cloud purple. I hear echoes of blood's thunder in your ears. He brought the curved backs of his vibrating shields together to make an ear-splitting squeal that shot chills across Mace's back, and his fighting grin showed teeth filed sharp as a vine cat's. You have decided to take my life. I won't let you harm these children, Mace repeated. Vaster shook his head in slow, grinning denial. I have no interest in them. I do not make war on children. Mace's response was grimly silent stare at Tyril's corpse. He was man enough to kill, was the meaning of the shrug in Vaster's growl. He was man enough to die. What he did was not war, but murder. What should I have done? Look around you, Doshilo. In this jungle, have you seen a jail? If I had, Mace said through his teeth, I would put you in it. But instead you stand there, panting with hope and fear. And this is key. Remember before when Nick had called it. Mace was looking at the airships that had flying away, and Nick was like, "Yeah, I know what you mean. Shame we couldn't have killed those too." And Mace just like almost lost it on Nick because Nick was actually right. That was some secret desire in Mace that he was trying to control. We've got this here too. Vaster just said you're panting with hope and fear. Jedi do not fear, Mace told him. Hope I left behind on Coruscant. You hope I will threaten the children. You fear I might not. You hope I will give you an excuse to kill me. You fear to simply act. Mace stared. In his reflection on Vaster's humming shields, he saw himself, though he looked upon a Shatterpoint in his own nature. What Vaster had said was true. It was all true. He burned with blood fever, ached to kill the Lord Pellic, the same way Vaster had killed Tyrell, and for the same reason. In putting himself between Vaster and the children, he hadn't been seeking to defend innocent lives. He'd been seeking justifiable homicide, a perfectly Jedi murder. Like a face full of icy water, it shook him from a dream. Now for the first time, the flame-lit bunker looked real. Vaster was now human, only a man of power, to be sure, but no longer embodiment. So he's shaken out of this darkness, this hold around him. And Vaster looks at him and says, you have decided to let me live, was the meaning in the wordless grumble, for now. And he says, now that I may safely show my back, I will fight. I will go. The fight is over. He says, I must deal with with our captives. And Mace says, you're not dealing with the captives. You're not going to kill them. He says, who said anything about killing them? He says, they get jungle justice given to the jungle. And I think Chalk talked about this before at some point, right, Al? When she had found the people the Baloi who had raped her and stuff like that, as a child or whatever, they were given to the jungle. They're captured, they're stripped naked and taken all of their supplies, all their weapons, and they're just sent out into the jungle. See if you can survive it. And they never do. But Carvaster says something important. He says, I did. So at some point as a child, Vaster had been given to the jungle, stripped of nothing at all, going into the jungle. But because he's so force powerful, he survived like a wild man in the jungle. That's why he can't speak. That's why he's got all this power, this savagery.
Sounds like a great reality show, Naked and Afraid.
Yeah, I think that's been done.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We find out, though, that Vaster goes out and punishes that acolyte he had that almost killed the Baloi, because that's not the Corran way. You give them to the jungle, you don't kill them. So as savage as they are, they have their own little system there. Poor Mace, we just see him almost bereft. Nick comes and finds him, and he tells Nick to go watch the children. He tells Nick about Vesh and Chalk. They can still be saved. And he goes out and he's trying to find the parents of the children. Go ahead.
I'm going to be very interested to see if those two actually survive this book, because they've got
Chalk and Vesh.
I mean, they've been hacked at. They've got a bug in their brain. I mean, good Lord.
They've been through it. That's for sure. So Mace goes out. He's trying to find the parents of the children left anyway. Tyrell's dead. And he finds the man who's the father of the children left. And it says, Mace could, relief or terror, Mace could not tell. The man's tears, for seeing his children. Mace could summon no sympathy for him. He could not forget that this was the man who had fired the first shot into the bunker. Nor could he pass any sort of judgment upon him. He could not say that if this man had held his fire, any of the dead there would be instead alive. Rankin was not among the captives. Now they're trying to find the girl's mother. And Mace goes to where the last spot was that she had been found, and he doesn't find the mother, but he does find this body, probably a woman's who'd been burned, and he just sinks to the ground, staring at the savagery and the despair and the horror around him in this dead woman's body. And he can't even, like, Nick says something to him, he can't even answer. He's just like he's just gone. He's in this moment of despair. He's like, what kind of darkness, what kind of hell is this that we've come to? And he can't save all the people around him. It's really harrowing. Then he hears this voice. Um, might as well be blind, he thought, and perhaps he also said it aloud, for a voice spoke from behind him, seemed to be answering. The wisest man I know once told me, it is in the darkest night that the light we are shines brightness. A woman's voice, crackling with exhaustion and hoarse with old pain, and perhaps it was only his voice that it could have kindled a touch in Mace's vast darkness. Only this voice could have brought Mace to his feet. Turning, hope bloomed inside his almost happy head, even almost smiling. He turned, his arms opening, his breath catching, and all he could say was, Deppa. But she did not come to his embrace, and the hope inside him sputtered and died. His arms fell to his sides, even prepared by what Nick had told him. He was not remotely ready for this. Jedi Master Depa Billaba stood before him in a tattered remnants of Jedi robes. So she's there. She's the jewel between her eyes there was a mark of her people's wisdom, people who had gone through this great work and movements of wisdom, and she had popped that off. She had her eyes wrapped around with a bandage. She just looks like this really bedraggled, individual, very skinny. Her face was pale, lined, fatigued. Mouth seemed lipless and hard. None of these were what kept Mace motionless, as though nailed to the ground, even as gunships swept overhead and rained blaster fire on the compound around them, because it's starting to be morning. They need to get a move on, because in morning, the gunships come. In this inferno of explosions, amid the whine of rock splinters and the hammering webwork of plasma, Mace could only stare at Deppa's forehead, where she'd once had that shining gold bead. Across her eyes, she wore the strip of rag, but she stood, he could see them all too well. Deppa. Mace had to raise his voice to even hear himself through the roar of the repulsor lifts and the laser cannons and the exploding dirt and rock around him. Deppa, what happened? What has happened to you? Hello, Mace, she said sadly. You shouldn't have come. Mixed signals much, Deppa? But that's the end of the chapter. That's the end of book 1. So paying attention to chapter arcs, and even if you're going to divide chapters into books of a novel, like a book 1 and book 2 of a novel, think about your arcs. So this is the intro, the rising action, the complications. We have left poor Mace in just the most despairing moment. Now, he's not a total despair. He's a Jedi, but you just stripped away everything you could from him, all the hope and little things he could hold on to. He's seen horrid, acts of war all around him, savagery. Deppa, his daughter, basically, his former Padawan, like a daughter to him, is so affected in front of him. And it's like, where do you go from here? And that's good writing. It's good arc. It's good first act writing, because you can't even imagine a way out, but you've got to read the rest of the story to see the way out, Mm-hmm. And it's not just going to be a snap. You can't look for a easy little solution to the problem. But how is Mace going to do this and maintain who he is? Because we know he doesn't fall to the dark side. We know the story of Mace after this, So what happens here? It's just fantastic writing. I'm really impressed with it. What were your thoughts? Because you haven't read the rest of it. You don't know what's coming or anything. What are your thoughts at this point now?
I'm feeling sorry for Mace. He is in probably the worst situation he's been in his life.
Mm-hmm.
He has seen things that a brutality I do not think he is used to.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. I mean, he's seen acts of war. He's seen people die.
Yeah, he's seen
but this
war,
is like,
but it's different. It's more visceral. It's more brutal. The blood, the smell of the blood, and the fact that there are children involved with it,
mm-hmm.
I think is the biggest blow to him.
Yeah. Just looking at the chat, some of the comments, Go Team Ghost Planet talking about, how do humans exist out in the galaxy far away? I mean, that's the cool thing about the EU, is that it does explore some of these pockets and places where these kind of cool stories can be told. Casey Lork says Carvaster this is Mace Windu. Stand down. It doesn't seem wise to do anything but firm when dealing with somebody that feral. Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point that you bring up, Casey, because this is something that's Mace is gonna have to learn how to deal with this Carvaster, how to act and how to possibly, get anywhere with him. Owen says, I like when Mace said no unnecessary killing. Reminds me a lot of the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not murder. Yeah. Murder innocent, kill innocent. Yeah. Because murder is killing an innocent, whereas killing in war isn't murder. But it's Carvaster brought up a good point. So what did Tyrell do? Tyrell just went and killed two dirty Corans that he thought should die. I mean, and yet he's a child, but still he committed a straight up act of murder. It's dark. Darth Enigma says I'm getting some Anglo-Zulu war vibes from this novel as well. Yeah, well, I mean, the Heart of Darkness roots of it, where that novel was originally set in Africa, talking about how teeth sharpening. That some African cultures would do that,
and the shields and the shields that they're using is very reminiscent of like the Zulus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sharp edges, on the sides. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go Team Ghost Plant says, I'm glad Mace stays hopeful and doesn't become a nihilistic person. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We know what Mace is going to do after this. So it's not like he doesn't die or fall to the dark side and become a Sith Lord or anything, but he's clearly got to go through some stuff and it's going to change him somehow. So it's interesting to see. Yeah. Oh, and Lister for $4.99. Thank you very much for the other super chat. Says, going to get ready for bed, but before I go, here's a little song fit for the occasion. This is the end, beautiful friend. The Doors from Apocalypse Now. Yeah, for Apocalypse Now, that's influence there.
I love the smell of plasma in the morning. It smells like victory.
But we know it's not the end. It's just the end of Act 1, and we're going to have to see things. So Part 2, I said Book 2, but Part 2 is called Victory Conditions, and that's where we're going next. Is there a Part 3? I forgot how it was set up. Let's see.
Yes.
What's the Part 3 called?
Shatterpoint.
Shatterpoint. Yeah. Okay.
Wow, that's shockingly familiar.
Yeah. So, chapters for next time. I like this idea of like 3 chapters at a time, but I just want to see how many page count that amounts to. What did you thought? I know you always have a prediction of what I'm going to say.
I have a prediction.
You don't want to say it yet? Okay. Let's see where chapter 11 ends here. And then, so that's, what's that going on? Oh man, we can't just end at chapter 11 because that's a real cliffhanger. Or unless you want to end at a cliffhanger.
It's up to you, man. It's your book study.
What do you think? Ending at chapter 12 or going all the way or ending at chapter 11 or going all the way to 12? That's a long stretch though. What do you think? I'm okay with going to the end of 12, but
it's doable.
Would you rather stop at 11? What do you guys think? Anybody who's reading along with us, would you rather go 9 through 11 or 9 through 12?
I don't have a clue, but
yeah, it's a pretty rough cliffhanger to stop on if we stop at the end of 11. I know that.
It's 50 some. I mean, it's a doable chunk. It's not. Like I said, I do it at 1.5 speed.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we will say we're going to go through 9 through 12. If we have to break it up a little bit time-wise next time, we'll know and we'll do that. But we're going to say 9 through 12 for next time. So
okay.
Good stuff. Yeah, Jiggle is a good first half or good first portion of the book. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that's all for us tonight, guys. I've got a video coming out tomorrow. People were saying they wanted to hear more about the art of the tale, writing the short tale. So I'm going to start doing a little series of those, and a lot more to come. I'm going to do some more anime videos and stuff and such. Any chance on another afternoon with Al? Never know until the moment. I know.
That's right. That is the wonderful enigma of the afternoon with Al.
Understood. What's is Gone with the Wind this weekend for your rewatch?
Yes, Gone with the Wind is Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, special early start time because it is almost a 4-hour film.
Yeah. Man, you guys are going to sit there for 4 hours streaming. Wow.
I don't know about anybody else, but I will.
Yep, yep. That's true. That's
I've
true.
got, of course, I got Troy and Annette may be joined by deleted scenes and the Birdman at least possibly at the beginning. Not quite
That's
sure,
cool.
but
Deleted scenes. I'm not familiar with that YouTuber.
he's in another aspect of the YouTube verse. I'll say that.
Okay. Does he work with Birdman or?
No, Troy
Oh, okay. Okay.
sometimes.
Gotcha. Yeah, just hadn't heard that name.
Yeah, yeah, I think he has. Has he worked with Birdman?
Yeah, I don't
I
know. I just hadn't
forget.
heard the name.
I forget.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um.
he floats around. But
Okay.
but yeah, that's that. Like I said, special start time, 8 p.m. Looking forward to that. It will be Troy and Nanette's first time ever watching the movie,
Whoa. Interesting. Okay.
so it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got then for tonight, folks. Thanks for tuning in with us. I'll be back with more videos, and we'll be back next week again for chapters 9 through 12. Really, this next chunk that we're going to read, really, you get to see some of how impressed I am with Mace Windu, because as I said, this novel really just shoots him up there in my list of favorite Jedi from the EU,
Mm-hmm.
really quite a bit. So it's impressive. So. All right, folks. Well, thanks for watching, and we will be back next week. But until then, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love.
Fiddly dee.
What?